drilling of special detachments. Well, we are to be in line with the topics of this forum, so we'll explain certain general things for you. First of all, why? The discussed subject selected are the special forces of the army and their physical condition. Well, it's because it's quite a bright example of the physical activity, and physical activity is very important in the special forces. Also, the mode of their activities, the loads that they need to survive may be considered to be extreme. Without explaining the specificity, I should say that people have serious job and they are selected quite seriously, and those selected are to be physically fit. So I explained about the subject. What about the situational exercises? All the exercises to prepare for special situations. So all the practical activity is situational, in fact, and it is conducted in accordance with the situation that may change. You can't object to this thing. Now, the second aspect of the situational preparation of our drilling is about the following. It is being conducted just before the operation to be performed or the task to be performed, when we already do have the understanding about the task, the goal, and the conditions in which this goal needs to be carried out. Hence comes a question. What may be done in the remaining period of time, the time left before the beginning of carrying out of the task? We call it the period of situational preparation. Not much may be done. Definitely, we don't have time to improve the level of physical fitness of the members of the special forces group. So the goal of the situational preparation, physical preparation, is determined by us as optimization of the physical condition of the armed forces members. We also organize their adaptation, as well as we analyze the conditions and the essence of the military task. Well, we have both training and the functional optimization. What is the optimization of the physical condition? Professor Chernov may object me and say that it's rather a functional than physical condition. Yes, true. Well, we do regard the training and the physical condition, the way the theory of the discipline determines it. So now we know about the objective. So, as you can see on the slide, we've determined the objective. Now let's talk about the content. What may be regarded as the content of physical preparation at the stage of preparation for carrying out of the goal. You can't object to the fact that physical activity, which is conducted during the professional activities of these military forces represented, is pretty high. The volume, the level of intensity, and it exceeds all the recommended norms, say the norms of the WHO, those well-known 300 minutes of average physical activity or 150 minutes of high physical activity per week. The activity of our group during the preparation period and during the carrying out of the objective shall be much higher. Hence, we shall have to interfere into this process with our traditional means, the physical exercises, special ones, most substantiated and well tested. Rest assured, everything we have at this period of time shall be the uh, professional activities and skills carried out while the activities during the drilling of the activities necessary for carrying out of the military task. Hence comes the question, what may be done or learned by us, the experts of physical preparation? Please be a bit closer to the mic. Oh, perhaps it's best, it's good that they don't hear us. Well, the military applied activities are very well described in the documents. For example, the guidelines for the physical preparation, and they make nearly half of the total number of exercises. As for the prospects in future, I believe their number shall get even higher twofold. But that was the applied activities, the uh, combat and the preparedness to be physically fit. Let me mention that everything that we do, all the physical exercises, by determination, these are the standard activities, and being standard, they don't they're not really suitable for preparation of the special forces when prepared when being prepared for carrying out of a particular task. Here is an example. The project preliminary preparation, new applied physical activity. I call them dynamic tactic activities. What are they about? That's the planned movement around the battlefield, um, say running for changing of the position at the conditional battlefield. Let me tell you, the way they were planned, they're not suitable. We double checked. We were drawing the lines of movement of the soldier from one place to the other, but that is wrong. All the movements must have an objective. The goal or objective should be the improvement of the position or carrying out of a certain stage of the military task. So the running should be not from line to line, but from one hiding place to the other. It may be a tree or a trench or a body, but our soldier, the one who carries out this activity, should have a choice. His choice shouldn't be impeded. What we should provide for him is the initial conditions, a signal or something of that kind, so that he knows about the best position. And this should be done in the condition of cooperation and with the support of the operations group. If there is no support, this is profane. It's how lay people do that. One more point about the situational preparation. That's the main problem and the special um, feature of the applied activities. Everything should be done with consideration of the changing conditions. And that's the main task of education. You should train not only the skills to carry out certain activities, not only to train or to educate the soldiers, but we should teach them about the sense. Artem will support me, I'm sure. That's the training should be about the following. When carrying out the activities, we should use the ability of the soldier to move so that the parameters of the activity carried out, dynamic ones, spatial ones, the ones related to time, are say, in line with the maximum capacity of the soldier. The shortest way is the automation of the activities and lifting the excessive control. That's better for psychology. If things become like automated or habitual, whatever the activities are, it's better, they're conducted better. And the mental condition should be good enough to be able to assess the background, the situation. When things are done in an automatic mode, then the mind is free to assess the surrounding situation. So that's the point when training our troops. One more aspect of situational preparation, I did call it, I named it adaptation, optimization of adaptation. Mr. Vasily Lvovich became alert. I say we should do the optimization of the functional reserves. It sounds a bit arrogant. However, everything related to adaptation, and I'm sure Alexey will have to agree with me, physical activity is traditionally related to uneven mode of movement activity. So if we manage to provide controlled um, mode of aerobic exchange at universal at carrying out of universal activities, it will bring us success, and it's possible to do it. Actually, our body doesn't care whether we carry out a Cooper test or we run for 2,000 meters or whether we carry out some monotonous physical work or maybe even a not monotonous one in the mode which is similar to those standards of 130, 150. I mean, heartbeats per minute for a certain period. So thus we can get rid of certain problems. Let me also tell you the following. Yeah, I wanted to tell this. When we regard the physical activity as an object of management, for optimization of the physical condition and adaptation of the physical functional reserves. If we optimize the functional reserves, then at this stage of preparation, we should optimize the movement training. And now the most curious or interesting thing, the physical activity is profiled by determination. We're all experts here in profiling of the physical drilling, and we usually work with, say, derivative subjects. We take the norms of physical preparation if we are too lazy to do the research. Mhm. Okay, that's the derivative, and it's distant from the own professional activity as it is. Well then, so when we manage the physical activity, we don't have the task of profiling or interference of the skills. We have just the activity as it is, and we can regard it as a tool for the management of the physical and functional condition, adaptation, and the reserves of the body. That's probably it, not to take too much time. Again, thanks for the attention, and questions are welcome. Distinguished comrades, we've heard the presentation of the Chief Scientific Fellow, the candidate of pedagogical sciences, Mr. Dmitry Matusov. Any questions to Dmitry? Candidate of pedagogical sciences, head of the group, Mr. Chungen, Andrei. You are right to mention that we don't have any a special subject of the physical preparation for such groups of the army. Let me refer to the document signed by the Defense Ministry. There, just 20 academic hours are allocated for the tactics, some hours for shooting, then some for engineering, some for communication. So there are no hours of studies allocated for that specially. However, if we as scientists uh, understand that we need some giga compensation in the process of certain activity that would improve the functional preparation, then we should regard what you've mentioned. When carrying out certain things, we should rely on understanding of the training that would improve the condition of the soldier. Hence comes a conflict of interest. In the same order of the Deputy Minister of Defense, we have 15 hours of drilling per day. Well, the format of our Congress does not include these issues. Yeah, I mean that now we are mentioning correct things, but they are not mentioned in the guiding documents. We only have 5 days. What can we do in those 5 days? So my suggestion is as follows. We need to bring it to the attention of the deputy minister, and we should explain him that things are organized incorrectly because there is no process of restoration of functions. There is a non-stop process, and I believe this approach is incorrect, and we should let our bosses get to know that. I'm very grateful to you for your question, and I'm pleased to see such a serious expert in the field. You seem to know about this subject, perhaps better than I do. But let me ask all the people who participate in this session to um, understand that this is quite a civilian Congress. So let us mention just the most general things, even when regarding such particular issues as the physical preparation. But you've mentioned quite a correct thing, and I believe what I mentioned does not disagree the essence of your question. I suggest that this is it with my answer to that question. Any more questions? No? Thank you very much, Dmitry. The next presentation is special features of functioning of the systems of the physical education in the armies of the African states. The speakers is Augustin Fusujima from 5th-year student from Rwanda Republic. The floor is yours. Dear comrades, let me make a presentation about the research on special features of functioning of the physical drilling of the army members in the African state. I will explain about Rwanda, Equatorial Guinea, and Angola Republic. This research was really topical due to the problems of the legal regulation of physical culture and sports. It's important for organization and providing of the physical preparation and sports. If it's not organized well enough, then the quality of preparation goes down. The purpose of the research is to study the special features in the armed forces of Rwanda and the development of recommendations for its improvement. The task of the researcher. First of all, on the basis of the scientific science literature and norms and standards to optimize the work on physical drilling in the armies of African states. Task number 2 is to study, generalize, and systematize the norms and rules that regulate the physical drilling of armed forces of African states. Task number 3 is to find out the existing problems and the ways to correct them in the armed forces of the African states. And also we were trying to find ways to use the experience of the Russian army. The next task is to find the ways for improvements. Here is the solution of the first task. We found out that the head in the field of is the Ministry of Sports of the African states. Their task is to coordinate the necessary activities in the field, the system of military education, the system of forming of quality systems in the armed forces is the main part of the national education system. The system of military education is a network of military schools. In Rwanda, it's the military academy in Rwanda. In the school, the academy, the infantry school in the city of Nasho, a basic military schools in the city of Nasho. So the second task to study the document, which is the legal basis for the regulation of physical drilling. For example, one of the documents is the Constitution of Rwanda, the basic document on physical drilling is on this side. It's first of all the presidential order. For example, the president trusted the sports development to the general staff number 9. Its name is G9. This is a document from the Ministry of Sports of Rwanda. You can see it on the slide. Also, there's the document of the Ministry of Defense of Rwanda. You see it on this slide as well. Certain guidelines are here too. Slides 11 and 12 are the documents and norms about the physical drilling. When analyzing the structure of the armed forces of Rwanda, we found that the organization of physical drilling in the army of Rwanda is done by the department number 9. Slides from 15 to 19 explain that the system of management of the physical drilling is as follows as it is explained on the slide. Slides from 20 to 23 explain the situation in Angola. The following main problems have been discovered in the field. First, the country has no national standards that would determine the level of physical preparation. They use the guidelines and instructions that were developed at the armed forces or in the army of Great Britain. Equatorial Guinea is using the old Spanish documents. Angola is using the Portuguese guidelines. We should develop our own models for drilling of our armed forces, and they should be in line with the modern requirements. The other difficulty is low level of financing, not enough equipment, and low level of physical fitness, since it's organized according to the British system, and we don't have good experts in physical drilling. There are some negative consequences of different standards of training and drilling. The final stage is the development of suggestions for improvement of the system of military drilling in Rwanda. Yeah, we should develop a better model. We should stop copying the old standards and rules of foreign countries, and we should develop the national guidelines in the field. We should specify the content of the existing rules and standards to avoid misunderstandings. We should pay attention, more attention to the physical drilling of the army members, and we should have good experts in the field. As for the armed forces in Russia, they have a system of incentive, material incentive for a good level of fitness of the members. Now our contacts with the Russian army are getting stronger. They supply modern arms to us. They help us with the training of military experts in different fields. And there took place negotiations between the army officials of Rwanda and Russia on this topic as well. The president of Rwanda, Kagame, insists that it's necessary to improve military cooperation with Russia and use the experience in training of the soldiers. We should also do procurement of arms from Russia. Hence, I suggest to develop the national guidelines for organization of physical training of the Rwanda army members and to use the existing system in Russia as a template. Thank you very much for the attention. Any questions to the speaker? No questions. I have one question. Well, you're studying here for 5 years. Also, you studied Russian language for 1 year. So you spent some 6 years in Russia. Can you compare the organization of physical training of the army members in Rwanda and in Russia? Like in Rwanda, you followed the British standards. Did you study the Russian experience? What is good? What can be copied from Russia to improve your system, to your mind? Well, we should include some Russian standards into our guidelines. We checked the existing guidelines in Russia. You know, as I've mentioned, we don't have the um, national standards, and we would like to take the Russian documents as a template, as a sample, so that it's the basis for our national norms. Mhm. Thank you. Good. Any other questions? No questions. The question is not coming into the mic. The interpreter can't hear and interpret it. Apologies. The next speaker speech is about the improvement of qualification of experts on physical drilling of the soldiers, which are under the dispenser observation. Dr. Chief Scientific Fellow of the Military Institute of Physical Culture, Mr. Alexey Shchurov, is going to present. Dear colleagues, according to the federal law issued on the 14th of July of the year 22, it's the law number 312. The federal law was modified on serving in the army, the one from the year 98. According to it, the contract soldiers who are acknowledged not fit or with limited fitness may continue to serve in the army. On the basis of this law, or due to modification of that law, up to 95% of the members of the army, after the rehabilitation or getting the prosthesis, did want to continue serving in the army. Hence, there's quite a number for people under regular medical checkup, and their number is gonna grow. Hence, we need to revise the role of the military expert on physical drilling. Different things are to be done to keep the disabled members of the army fit. According to the existing guidelines on physical preparation or drilling, the members of the army under the medical checkup and those after a trauma are not being assessed. I mean, the physical fitness level is not being assessed. However, they follow the recommendations of the doctors and go through certain medical procedures. They do the fitness physical exercises as well. Let's regard who is in charge of these kinds of physical activities. Rehab physical exercises is the method of rehabilitation of sick people and handicapped people with limited physical abilities. And usually this work is conducted by medical personnel with the purpose to adapt their condition. Adaptive physical culture is conducted by the experts in the field. That is, this is done by the teachers in the field, by the coaches. The official name of the profession is coach teacher on adaptive physical culture and sports. The main objectives of that are the following. Conducting training courses for people with impaired health in a special medical institutions. Slide number 5, please. Next function, training and preparing for competitions of um, athletes with limited abilities, including preparing them for Paralympic games and other It is the service applied physical preparation. The graduates of special colleges may learn this profession, but only in the framework of refresher courses. However, up to 150 hours of studies are necessary for that. This issue is now being discussed. However, at the same time, our graduates, the graduates of the Military Institute on Physical Culture at this level of education may conduct the rehab physical courses. However, in the army, the experts on physical um, training never uh, paid enough attention to this field. Um, they were mainly developing their physical ability. As for the health problems of the army members, it was kind of not the first issue. Hence, the experts on physical um, drilling say lose the skills they've learned while studying at the college. Rehab physical culture is a kind of physical activity aimed at optimization of the physical um, condition and improvement of resistance of the body to the harming factors of their uh, professional activities. The system includes the following. May I have slide number 7, please? That's organization, coordination, coordination, rehab, and hygienic function. It's being conducted at schools and colleges or at special training courses. Also, there may be a recreation. That's when people simply take a rest after some strain. Hygienic includes different kinds of physical culture. That is a kind of a routine. That's morning exercises, pauses for exercises, well, the routine exercises during the day. From among the fields, the kinds of physical culture I mentioned, it's obvious that the recreational one and the hygienic physical culture should be more used by the experts on physical training with regard to the army members who are the regular medical checkup and those with traumas. The following is necessary. They should have plenty of knowledge, and this knowledge should be refreshed from time to time. Our graduates do get this necessary education in quite a sufficient volume. Hence, it's necessary, I believe, to develop the carry out an additional program of refresher courses, rehab, physical culture, that should include approximately the following modules. First, the general description and the principles of methodology of rehab physical culture with soldiers with different kinds of traumas and health impairment. Next, main systems for improvement of physical conditions, running, jogging, swimming, sports games, etc. Next module is methods for assessment of physical fitness of the soldiers after the trauma received in battles. It should be similar to that system of ready for labor defense for um, people with impaired condition. There are 9 groups of norms that may be adapted for our future subjects. Let me once again underline that such refresher courses are really necessary nowadays because the army members with traumas may be in the detachments where there's no experts on rehab or adaptive physical culture. And some additional necessary equipment may be necessary for such people. And the last idea, besides organization and conducting of rehab physical exercises in the army, they should get in touch with the nearest organization, so where they provide exercises for handicapped people, so that you have good connections with such organizations, and so that the people can socialize better and go in for sports seriously. Considering all the things mentioned above, we may come to a conclusion that the role of the person responsible for the development of physical fitness of army members with impaired health is now of higher importance, and we should improve the skills of such experts according to the training program. Thank you for the attention. Questions to the speaker are welcome. Nobody has questions. Let me add a bit. The special military operation requires certain modern corrections because now we do have the army members after the wounds and traumas. Doctors do provide treatment for them, and us experts in our field should also pay enough attention to them. The Minister of Defense said that it's better to not fire the wounded army members. They should become instructors, um, teachers at the um, offices. Their experience is precious. Their knowledge and skills may be transferred to the other army members, to the new generation. Hence, we should modify the requirements to the experts in the field. Our programs are aimed at work with healthy soldiers, but we should be able to provide and to have knowledge in the rehab of physical culture. Post-trauma syndromes are to be treated. I'm sure our heads will hear us, and the relevant training programs shall be modified accordingly. Let me mention, I hope you've heard me. The Military Institute of Physical Culture doesn't have a license at the moment for organizing refresher courses in rehab of physical culture. But as for the health improving physical culture, even no license is necessary for that, and it's quite possible to get this organized if there's a demand. We haven't yet studied that there will be a high demand. But we hope that there will be a demand, and we would like to be useful for our society, for our country. Our program is going to be modified a bit. The Doctor of Pedagogical Sciences, Professor Viktor Shayan, is also participating in a different session. That's why he asked for the floor ahead of the time, and we supported him. The topic is special features of using the results of scientific research for preparation of cadets. He's from the Center of Sports Preparation, Moscow. Can you find my presentation, please? I always wanted to be a speaker at your session since I've served in police for a long time, and I was teaching at different departments of the police academy. I would support scientific support, provide scientific support for training of police members. Here is a picture that tells a lot. There are many different orders and strict standards and rules about the level of physical fitness. The orders are strict, however, these may be easily compensated by the fact that it's not a must to follow the rules. Yes, there's a rule, but nobody ever followed it. Here is an obvious example. These officers won't be able to fit the standards. There's a good system for training of teachers, I mean the police academies, but the way the process of training in physical fitness and shooting is not optimal. And we need some scientific upgrading of these guidelines. We do research, but in practice, it's never used. The guidelines and tests are never modified. Though it's about time to do it. Let me present certain results of our research, which were never carried out in reality, unfortunately. So let me explain what we've done. That was yet at the time when our police was called militia. It used to be classified information, not anymore. A lot of time has passed, militia has turned into the police. It's not classified anymore, I believe. So we'll provide this info. I had an adjunct who was the head of the Finnish college, and he explained how the physical fitness of cadets is changing throughout the whole period of training. Take a look at what's happening. I've discussed this with many other colleagues from different schools. They say same things happen. Young man came from school who would never go in for sports or physical training regularly. They start exercising, and the physical condition is abruptly improving. Everything gets stabilized, stable, but before the graduation, things get worse. Seems like work is being done, but the results are zero. or even negative. I've tried to analyze the situation, how the training programs are being followed, and what are their results. We've analyzed separately men, women in different kinds of physical training and mastering the wrestling. Um, there is no correlation on with their attendance of classes and certain parameters called to the assessing the efficacy of training is not observed. This is so about the methodology and the team of teachers. For example, the Shchurov shooting, we had more than 40 teachers, but if you check the quality, only three teachers in shooting have had the basic pedagogical education and they were good shooters themselves. All the others can't be used because they are not experts in the field. However, 40 plus people are teaching cadets to shoot. And the methodology is very simple. Aim better and be slow when pulling the trigger. That's, I had a very good adjunct who was responsible for the special forces. He was in Rosgvardia. He was responsible for drugs control. He is now in the acting army. So that's his work. Different methods of wrestling and whether they are being studied and used by the special detachments. At OMON of Moscow, they've learned that in limited space, when they are to arrest the criminals, mainly they use the hitting with hands, then making lie, then arresting. But at the lessons, since the first year, they were studying a different um, methods. However, a lot of time was wasted on mastering these. Some of the cadets were not physically fit enough, and they would make mistakes finding their right or leg, right or left leg or arm. I believe that in sports practice, there's a good notion making stages of sports training. Um, we should have normal methods and then assess the efficacy of our activities. In 4 years of education, if you do everything gradually, well, we cannot resolve the question. Everybody took an offense. How come we want to teach them wrestling since the first year? We shouldn't because they're not prepared for that. On the basis of this work. By the way, Alexey Maksimovich was an opponent at the defense of this um, thesis, Mr. Gavrilenko. Uh, he looked through these basic things and we try to think of what is necessary. We should modify the system of assessment and the content of courses on physical drilling. If it's if the hit is the basic technical method for these groups, so we should assess whether um, it's official. We had a dynamometer that would assess these two parameters, the maximum force of the hit and the gradient in time, how quickly the force of the hit grows in time. In relation with this criterion, we've assessed the way the norms on physical fitness of cadets correlate with this parameter. It turned out that all the norms from the guidelines don't correlate at all with the carrying out of this movement, the hit. It was actually the waste of time, and the training process results were not assessed correctly. Next came an experiment. We tried to develop the new approaches for the assessment of physical fitness of cadets. One of the criteria is the standard thing, weightlifting, 40 kilos, repetitions, repeated exercises with maximum speed. If it's done for over 3 seconds, then there's no dependence to the level of fitness. That is dependence between time and the gradient of the force of hit. Dependence is 0. And there's the critical value, 3 seconds. If it's done in less than 3 seconds, then we observe the linear dependence. The more physically fit he is, the better he conducts this test. The higher is the gradient of the hit force. We have a simple suggestion. Guys, to include this test exercise, make it less than 3 seconds, and then you'll check whether the cadet is well prepared or not. It's not that difficult. It's not running for 3 or 5 kilometers. It's a simple test. And one has to be more flexible when resolving the practical things. As for the shooting training, one of the experiments, let me show it. These are the FSB, Federal Security Bureau employees. Pavel Prokopyevich once came to check your educational establishment. He was my adjunct. I know he participated in 2 Olympic Games. How does physical fatigue impact the shooting skills? We had a standardized test load with a step-by-step increase of load up to the maximum consumption of oxygen, and at each stage they did some standard shooting. Shooting from 25 meters. You see, he was shooting at this platform. There's the distribution of the force, and there's a mask that analyzed his consumption of oxygen. You can also assess the electric activity. Myogram was recorded. We also had non-invasive determination of oxygen saturation in the athlete's blood. So all this was somehow systematized. Well, these were put into such a scheme. That's see the precision of shooting at different levels of physical fatigue, and how precisely he was shooting. If a physical fatigue wasn't that high, 90% he did hit the target. And as for the following, the results, they depend strongly on the level of physical fitness. If they were more fitter, they were shooting better. Hence, the decided to include some special exercises that would train them to become better shooters, even in conditions of fatigue. Those who followed those special exercises really turned out to be better shooters than unprepared cadets. Their quality of shooting went down abruptly at achievement of a certain level of physical fatigue. This red line is the border between aerobic metabolism and the beginning of activation of anaerobic glycolysis. So that point was an important marker that enabled us to assess the level of preparation of athletes. This was a short 3 month experiment that Protapovich based on his own sports experience. It was aimed at improvement of the athletes' abilities. That's how the motion skills went down at modification of saturation with oxygen, oxygenation of blood. See, we have standardized tests in the beginning and in the end of the experiment. In the beginning, when the load was relatively low, saturation went down, and this caused the worsening of the motion skill. At improvement of anaerobic opportunities, see, the oxygen saturation went to the right. Importantly, that means at a higher load, anaerobic modification started to take place. Hence, the motion skill went worse. But this happened already at a higher level of physical fatigue. May I have the next slide, please? In the conditions of standardized testing before and after the experiment, well, the level of success went different, as you see. Before the experiment, the worsening of the results of shooting went down abruptly. Later, it became less systemic, and the main thing, at the maximum level of physical fatigue, when oxygen consumption was maximum, the quality of shooting still remained stable enough. That's it with my presentation. I believe I overtook my time limit. Let me summarize. These two things I mentioned in the beginning, science and practice at police academies, are not interrelated, unfortunately. And I think for improvement of efficacy of this field, we should have the following system. If a scientific thesis is to be defended, it should be proven that this research should provide some practical use for the military or police education. Otherwise, theory is in vain if it's not used in practice. It's about the police. As for the FSB, they did well. They've introduced going in for sports. I know that you have well thought systems of stage by stage upgrading. Questions are welcome. Any questions from the colleagues? The question isn't coming into the mic. Apologies. How long did it take you to achieve the result, that later system? 3 months of active drilling to improve the aerobic component of stamina and with training and shooting, but we focused on aerobic exercises. How many days or say hours a day were you studied? It was a standard program. The number of hours provided for cadets of this year. Distribution of the hours of studies didn't change. It's the content of studies that was modified. They didn't exercise more, they exercised better, I would say. And the basis was the principle of making it in periods, like it's done in sports. There's a task, and for it to be carried out, there should be sufficient exercise conducted in a well-planned way. I see. But did you check how other physical properties, did they go down or up? No, we didn't do that. We only had one thing to check the correlation with shooting. To check other properties, we do it separately. If a good result is once achieved, it's better to support it than to get everything developed at the same time. That's the essence of introducing of periods in sports training, to do the task and then to support the achieved level. And then the next task is to be resolved in the planned period of time. But for that, you first need to set the tasks correctly. He said that he has spent all the time for preparing for this test. So was it mainly physical? Oh, you misunderstood me. I mean the development of a physical property. I mean the maximum anaerobic capacity. Thank you. More questions? Professor Shchurov. Not into the mic, sorry. Away from the mic. My apologies. The interpreter can't interpret. The answer is as follows. I meant cadets of schools, of educational establishments. Any more questions? Viktor Vladimirovich, thank you very much. You're the head of the session. Professor Svian came here to share his results. Nevertheless, thanks for, and national friendship lasts for decades. He's a leading expert in special physical preparations in martial arts. At a certain time, he was at the head of a comprehensive scientific group of the judo team of Russia, and is also one of the founders of the conference called Modern Technologies of Top Sports in the System for Preparation of military structures. So I believe, yes, we should follow this idea of using professional sports preparation for the armed forces and its detachments. We are the only structure preparing experts in the field. Well, that's positive news. So we'll continue. Thank you, Victor. Now the floor is given to Tatiana Koval, candidate of geology and mineralogy, docent, and the sportsman of the St. Petersburg State University. To tell us on peculiarities of fitness training among students for camping. Dear colleagues, I will probably not fit the general topic of this of your presentations. I will not show you schemes. I will not talk about research, but I will tell you about serious problem for our society. I'll begin not with my presentation, since it's related to tourism, camping, and a narrow discipline that only appeared 3 years ago. It's called Northern Walking. I go in for that. Let me introduce myself. I graduated from the Polytechnical Institute. After that, for 50 plus years, I do mountain climbing. I'm an international athlete in this field. I'm a candidate of a sports master in alpinism, mountain climbing, and I was training youth in this field. Now I work with the students of the St. Petersburg University. And if we talk about students at the university, well, it's difficult to do scientific work because we don't have enough hours allocated for us. I was lucky. I have an opportunity in the evenings at my free time. I also work at the organization related to user policy and NGOs. The youth and teenager centers, they are in every district of our city. They're actually clubs for youth. Um, I also do mountain climbing with them. And the teenagers and youth that I socialize with, they are very different from these university students up to teenagers with deviant behavior. Well, we can see what's happening in the society and what's happening with the youth. I sometimes can't even provide the wording of what's to be done because I'm sometimes scared regarding my active lifestyle. Well, I'll get away from the military topic. Let me provide a couple of terminations. A professional applied physical preparation is especially aimed at selective use of physical culture and sports for preparing a person for certain professional activity. Professional applied physical preparation enables to develop the physical ability to improve the motion skills, to train the will, to improve the resistance of the body to the bad environment or hazardous environment of professional activities. So it's a mean to get prepared for professional activities. So if nowadays we went 140 years ago, we go 40 years ago or look into that period, I would be happy to provide very good figures and facts about the mountain climbing camps and this kind of activity among the youth. Prepared quite a big number of young experts who were good in the field works. They were good constructors. They were very enthusiastic, and they were very useful for our country, and they were rather professional. But those 40 years have passed, so I will begin my presentation with a curious and unusual fact. Not sure if you know what Scandinavian or Northern walking is. Even if you know, I will explain certain facts, but I'll begin with a different thing. So let me tell you what I will not mention today. I will not mention about the benefits of the Scandinavian Northern walking. We know quite well about the skills of walking. I will not talk about preparing of mountain climbers and tourists that are employed in industrial alpinism. In general, I will not talk about the topic on the level of the country. It's a tool for professional preparation of the youth, especially if in future they will have to work in the field. I will not convince the audience about the importance of tourism and mountain climbing to improve the skills of the youth. Then they will be able to defend their motherland better. Students nowadays do not have very good health, and the situation is getting aggravated. This is checked by the research conducted among students for the last 5 years. The government system for training of alpinists and mountain climbers has been destroyed. The system that was created in the USSR, there was quite a good system which didn't survive till nowadays. I will not drive your attention to the bad development of sports tourism. All the exercises are now indoors instead of being outdoors, which I believe is a necessary condition, especially at contests. The system of values has changed among the youth. Now the youth is subject to wrong values. According to the info from the social networks and at computer forums, there are now different trends regarding the physical activity. Some measures are not supporting the development of tourism. I'll briefly tell you about the following. Sorry from the preamble. Walking with sticks. How come? I will tell you about what happened to me. I left commerce. I entered the university. I was planning to do mountain climbing. No, forget it. I was told more than 60 or 70% of students are not fit enough for mountain climbing. Hence, I developed northern walking. Once it was called Scandinavian. If you're interested, I can explain about the subject. Now about the northern walking. In the focus of the problems I've just enlisted. This is the last medal that our students won at a local contest. Why sports? Scandinavian walking is a huge commercial project of mine, and it's unique in fitness technologies. Some people wanted to go in for sports, and among the kinds of sports, new ones included, another kind of sport was included called northern walking. What do students do at the St. Petersburg University? The main thing in northern walking, these are the norms, the guidelines. When analyzing what attracts youth and students going for northern walking, clear. I'm a scientist, so I should have provided a kind of a diagram, but let me be honest. Youth is attracted by charismatic leaders that they want to copy. If you are a good leader, they shall follow you. We've gathered and generalized the facts accessibility, newness, and it's rather cheap to go in for that kind of sport. Tourism as applied physical drilling or a preparation. I'll briefly explain. The youth has modified its values. They are not thinking about future activities. They are interested to be a blogger, to make millions, but um, exercising twice a week for 2 hours, that's not interesting. Commerce is being developed. It attracts modern youth a lot. Hence, a very good motivating or incentivizing factor was invented, the medal. No matter what the result is, in the end you get a medal anyway. So you can boast in social networks. Now you are the medal winner. So this kind of socializing, uh, we organize that yes, we use modern methods to resolve model modern problems when graduating from the college. If students are not going in for sports, their physical condition is sad. Sometimes a 70-year-old professor can do more than modern students. So organized that exercises, walking with sticks, and it's not only walking. We go to the plain air. We have some fresh air, so people are able to install a tent, to make a bonfire, to protect themselves, and so it's a more attractive factor than just getting a medal. Now, well, I've mentioned a lot of things to you. So if we talk about modern youth, from my point of view, you can't really force the young people do things. So new tools for motivation are to be found. The coaches are to consider that, and they should let the youth get well trained and be useful for defense of their motherland. Thank you. Questions are welcome. Deputy Head of Department of the Research Center, Major Leontiev. Frankly speaking, you mentioned mountain climbing negatively. You said you've come, they didn't let you do it, something of that kind. Let me disagree with you. First of all, mountain climbing in the year 20 was included in the Tokyo Olympic Games. The second, St. Petersburg School of Mountain Climbing is one of the best in Russia. They win all the contests, and at all the places where this is taught, there are queues. So a lot is done by the Federation of Mountain Climbing of St. Petersburg. And you said that mountain climbing is not being developed. You weren't an attentive listener. I'm a sports master in mountain climbing, the USSR champion in this field. I keep winning international contests in my age group. If you come to any commercial center and ask if you know about Tatiana Koval, they'll say yes, she's our free visitor. You were probably not attentive enough. Let me ask you a question. At the last slide, you mentioned organization of motion games with elements of northern walking. How do you organize that? If we talk about the gymnastic stick, it's a great tool for the development of flexibility, coordination, and um, strength. If you have not one, but two gymnastic sticks, then you have more options, at least twofold. About commerce, Scandinavian walking was a unique commercial project. People were promised everything. Let us not mention that. To answer the question you were asked, yes, we involve games for warming up. Throw, relay, yeah, motion games. Any other questions? No, please take your seat. Next speaker is Elena Nikitina from the Herzen Pedagogical University. She is the candidate of Pedagogical Sciences, Master of Sports. Safety at physical exercising. Hello. Again, I'm a bit away from the main topic. It's not related to the military topic. Nowadays, it's very important to prepare competent, physically fit expert. The employee of EMERCOM may carry out himself in at least five different fields. Hence, motion competence has to be obtained at physical exercising. One of the needs of the society is providing security of the citizen, safety and security, and hence we should good preparedness for the EMERCOM experts. Sometimes requirements are very high to the physical and mental properties and practical skills. It's important to organize good training of youth in general and of our graduates. In our research, we regarded motion competence as the basis for physical preparedness of the graduates so that they are prepared for their future professional activities. Motion competence means having basic knowledge in the field that provides achieving the required objective. If one key skill is missing, the objective may be unattainable. All the components of forming of the motion activity are interrelated. We've analyzed the condition of our students. Motion memory is a necessary component. Basic tasks of physical training is generalizing of knowledge in the field and forming of relevant competences, including the motion. the expert on safe activity should have the relevant level of education. Physical endurance, psychological or mental sustainability, and fast reaction. We've conducted the polls of students and teachers in the field. Altogether, we've polled 487 people, including 365 students, 53 teachers, and some experts. Question about the role of physical culture in their life. They said it's 57%, but they only go in for it at the university. 37 are in sports groups, and some are not going in for sports at all for different reasons. Some due to the medical condition, some are lazy. We asked to range the kinds of activities. The preferences were as follows: 29% prefer CrossFit, 20 different kinds of aerobics, 14 selected the gym, 11% mentioned functional training, 5 respondents mentioned stretching and feetball. Next question was whether different stress situations are to be simulated when training. 85% said yes. Problems are to be simulated at training. Some preliminary info. A candidate thesis was defended based on this research. A program was developed in which at training they would simulate problems. That was an experiment. Many times experts were polled on the topic, and this enabled us to come to a conclusion that the main drawbacks of physical education at colleges are the fact that they're monotonous, conservative, no effect, no innovative technologies. Factors determining success were mentioned as follows. First, everyone mentioned motion experience, next motion memory, next the level of development of physical properties. Physical preparedness is necessary for successful activities. Hence, we should improve the physical properties of graduates. That's necessary for them to be successful in their profession. All this enabled us to come to the following conclusion. The graduate may actively develop his motion abilities and form motion competence for achieving the necessary task. This is only possible if the training program shall include the applied physical preparation. To the year 12, it was carried out successfully in our college, and this enabled us to train the experts of all the necessary levels. Thus, we need to modify the training program, at least in some parts, since the students of this department should be physically fit. Thank you for the attention. Thank you. No questions? No mic is used, sorry. Sorry, no mic, no translation. Thank you. Hope you can hear me. Aspects of training of physical culture in Suvorov and Nakhimov cadet schools. Dear colleagues, I'm Vyacheslav Lotoshkin, the assistant professor of the Military Physical Culture Institute. Let me present. This is our common presentation. Right name for it is psychological, pedagogical, and legal aspects of training certain subjects in physical culture. That's the name of the discipline, which is provided at refresher courses for teachers. In the previous presentation, it was mentioned, we have one specialty, but graduates are busy in different fields. The head of the detachment, assistant head of the detachment, instructors, and we have losses in our institute. Mr. Pavel Polyakov, our graduate, was killed during the special operation in Ukraine, and after that he was rewarded with the order. So now we train coaches like we did in 1970s. There was a school of coaches and the group for top level for training or for teaching of top level coaches. Now we'll talk about one psychological aspect. Next picture, please. So special features of teenagers. Those special features determine the methods used for by coaches who are training teenagers. That's the requirements to the coaches. We analyze the psychological features of the person. I mean the following: the modification of self-assessment, individual features, continuity of the development of the personality, structural unity, activity. That's what is typical for the cadets in the mentioned educational establishments subject to the defense ministry. Now talking about the factors that impact the activity of the cadets. They should be known by the teachers. That's a need for movement and safety and security things, as well as the number of social factors. Assessment of own activity, striving to get the knowledge via the interest, motivation. And once Grigory Gennadievich delivered a presentation at one of our conferences that was about on all these issues, including the motivation for physical drilling. Teenage Teenagers are aged from 13 to 17. That's due to modification of their bodies and mental and physical development is not parallel. The coaches know about the psychological special features of teenagers, about the special features of their psychology, and they should consider that when working. However, we encounter the following thing. Those coming to us, most of them have a claim to their cadets regarding the qualities mentioned on the slide. They are pretty aggressive, rude, maximalistic. They're very critical about the teachers. They're sensitive to criticism. They have a high level of anxiety, etc. We understand that our cadet schools get rather good boys who are good in sports and do have certain qualities of leaders. Those coming to different educational establishments of the Defense Ministry are motivated, first of all, by certain social aspects, and their readiness to follow the leader, their ability to form certain micro groups. They're usually very controversial. A teenager usually wants to be a part of the group when socializing, and these groups are being formed on the basis of different things, including the kind of sport. And teenagers are looking for socializing, teamwork. However, they want to occupy a certain position in that group to be able to reveal all their abilities. We mentioned the following to the teachers. Certain abilities given by nature are to be developed anyway. And here are the results achieved by our cadet school. We win the different contests thanks to the talents of our cadets and to the good level of education. A teenager in a military uniform, some teachers believe it's just a small man who, with the relevant training, may become, say, a champion and please the coach in a certain kind of sport. However, those little men have other properties that sometimes contradict the aim of education. Some are egocentric or become egocentric. They believe they're unique. They strive for independence. They're likely to have conflicts. They get used to be the leaders, to be the first, and that may deviate their behavior. They believe they're special, and this may contradict the assessment of the surrounding people. They don't accept that if this doesn't coincide with the results of their self-assessment. Teenagers depend on the impact of their peers, and this may cause even crime. When they become cadets, they sometimes violate the rules of discipline. Sometimes that's the way they self-express. Sometimes they have emotional breakdowns. Sometimes they're hysterical or aggressive. And in such cases, the teacher should be wise enough and distract the attention of the group that may impact negatively this cadet. What do we recommend? We suggest a number of things that we have mentioned in this brochure. If you get to these courses, you will get that brochure. The active and dominant people should be given certain tasks. Irritant should get support, and they should be trained to work in a team. Hence, the relations should be improved in the group and between the teacher and the group. If people are likely to be revengeful, then some correction is to be organized. If the skill is not formed correctly, then certain exercises should be done and certain rules of contest that should be established. Well, but it's better to first install correctly than to reinstall later on. That's what I wanted to tell you about training physical culture in the education establishments of the Defense Ministry. Thank you for the attention. Distinguished Vyacheslav Valentinovich, here is my question. At forming of the training process of our experts, did you use the opinion and experience of the school teachers and the results of the psychological assessment? Our experts spending over 12 hours a day together with the cadets. Thank you for the question. The problem is that they mentioned discipline, and here I see the graduates of our institute. First, it was called psychology at sports training, now psychology and pedagogics. Since now there are less training hours. We only have enough time to provide the general positions. And when the system of forces of additional and refresher course training counts, then at the seminar or at the practical trainings, we use the form of opinions exchange on the issues. Next set is what they get. More questions? Thank you. Thank you for the attention. Distinguished comrades, the next speaker is Yelena Tibekina, candidate of philosophy, the teacher of the Military Academy of the Defense Ministry of Russia. She will tell about sports as a factor of forming of positive masculinity and of team building among the soldiers. Dear colleagues, it's going to be an analytical presentation. Let me present the sport as a factor for forming of positive masculinity and for team building among the military soldiers. If people don't go in for sports, they can be fans or observers. It starts with children's games that involve physical activity, and it may be up to the international contest. So professional sport is the kind of socializing. It's good for improving of social skills. Sport makes you belong formally or informally, be a member of certain groups. You may say you're an expert or a fan or another thing. So thus, you get to have a certain status in this society or get a new social status. That's why in sports, there are certain gender behavior standards. Nowadays, those gender differences are getting more vague in sports as well. However, the examples of traditional sports culture keep existing nowadays. And now the notion of gender and number of social qualities are typical for men or women. Earlier, this concept did coincide with biological features, like people had sets of gender features typical for social behavior of men and women. However, nowadays, gender identity is getting away and it's becoming different, hence the gender collisions of the present world. However, men would create their image, and it was either masculine or not. Depends. Well, and that also was related to initiation rites. The boy in primitive nations did get the status of a man. A new social role was obtained. However, nowadays this is becoming different. Now, women are striving for social equality, so they follow templates which are not in line with notion of femininity. Um, and the notion of masculinity is changing too. Hence, most of men are now competing not only with men, but with other women too. Hence, new images are being formed of not only positive masculinity, but negative as well, like abusing, battering, etc. So it's important to reveal or restore positive masculinity, and it works better in societies that retain hierarchy and sex initiation. That's like in the army. Teamwork is very important and it enables good work of the detachment and good functioning of the detachment. There's better mutual understanding, less unpredictable um, things that are being done. Though somehow there may be hazards to that if there are informal relations. Sometimes conflicts are being resolved via using arms. Arms are being used in the army. So if a conflict is resolved using the arms, that's maybe quite a tragedy. That's why sports practices enable us to effectively um, support the teamwork, and one may compete in the social group without violating the rules. For example, if you disagree with your commander, you may overcome him in sports. Nobody will object that. The general level of social aggression um, rules that there's a system of rules and penalties, thus there's a self-regulating practice that keeps it safe. In military education, sports is very important. Sports and physical culture is the foundation of the military preparation. It's also good for the personal and physical um, abilities of the personality. So that's healthy relations are obtained. Sports is important for preparation of a training of future officers, and it's good for improvement of health of the cadets. In our academy, we've done some polling among the cadets of different years of education, course 3, 4, and 5 of the education. We asked whether sports is good for team building in the army. 90% answered positively. Sports is good for the development of physical skills. Also, it brings down the aggressiveness, especially the team kinds of sports. Thus, in a military group, sports is beneficial for the teamwork. It's also kind of a practice of initiation and the feeling of brotherhood is being developed. That's positive masculinity is formed, and also gender inequality and stereotypes are being overcome, and patterns of positive masculinity are being formed. Self-sacrifice, bravery, unlike using some non-sanctioned um, bullying. Any questions from the audience? Thank you very much, Helena. Next speaker. Lieutenant Colonel Anatoly. Valentin Petrovich Pashutkin. The presentation is on the need of changing of the norms of sports in shooting. He's from Mazhaysky Military Academy. You may continue introducing yourself. Dear Chair, dear colleagues, I'm the teacher of the chair of physical training. I am the sports master and distinguished coach and the judge in shooting and in the officers' triathlon. The topic of our forum is very serious and is of great interest. Let me drive your attention to the following fact. By the way, my presentation was prepared by a group of experts and scientists from the chair of our institute. And it touches upon a rather an interesting topic that's changing the norms in shooting from standard and service arms. It's about the following. Many disciplines of sports, shooting is included. In this kind of sports, in our country, a number of competitions is being organized. These are competitions between the detachments and up to the all Russian competition. And we have international competitions with friendly countries as well. They're using two kinds of arms, Makarov pistol and Kalashnikov machine gun AK-74 and its modifications. At special events, they are shooting from Dolgonov sniper gun. Pistol use PM1, 3 and 4 among men. As for Kalashnikov, it's AK-1-4, etc. I will not uh, describe the exercises in detail, but this is the first brief course, 3 plus 10. Longer ones, K3, are used for shooting systems 3 plus 10 from different positions. These exercises are conducted by the members of the army, and in the past 4 years, women were involved as well into these competitions. For the first time, the Army Championship was conducted last year. Earlier, these contests were organized without the women, but sometimes they were attracted. Now, in the educational establishments, there are competitions between the educational establishments, like, for example, like right now, they have contests organized in Ryazan with participation of women as well. In the past 5 years, or even 6 years, women were admitted as cadets. This year, they entered the army. The general staff stopped quotas for women in the army, unfortunately, and in the other colleges, they do continue admitting ladies. It's the Ministry of Sports that is in charge of these kinds of sports. They approve all the norms. And the Central Sports Club of the our Ministry of Defense. By the way, they celebrate their 100th anniversary this year. The development of military applied kinds of sport is done as follows. We improve the norms and a legal basis. We improve the material facilities for organization of competitions. We improve the rules of competitions and we improve the level of sports referees. And we study this subject in our educational establishments. We also cooperate with the Institute of Culture. A question arose. The norms are not, the existing norms are not quite relevant. Here is the history of the issue. There exist the certain norms in shooting with bullets, and that included the practical or applied kinds of sport. In 1990s, in the beginning of the century, there was a subdivision and some separate kinds of sports were formed or created. And the norms for them were used automatically, just mechanically. They copied the norms without paying too much attention to the peculiarities of certain kinds of shooting. They were more in for professional sports. Some exercises were used in competitions between the educational establishments, and afterwards they started to be used in the army as well. I've earlier listed the exercises. We've analyzed the previous years. I was the chief judge of different contests. So we've analyzed the championships on shooting, different exercises. That's PM3, exercise 5 plus 30, shooting from Makarov pistol from a distance of 25 meters. Please go back with the slides. So in 10 years, we've decided to analyze the results of 10 years, places from 1 to 6, and then place 10, 15, and 20. This column is the average data of places 1 to 3. Second column from 1 to 6. At the bottom, you see the average results. Of the first place for a decade, then same for places from 2 to 6. The first averaged is similar to the norm for the sports master. The requirements of these kinds of sports. First 4 places give the right to get the title of the sports master if certain elements are carried out. Category 2 plays from 1 to 6. We've singled out the average for the results of the candidate of the sports master. The last column is carrying out the norms of sports master year after year, and then the bottom line, sorry, that's the results with the number of carried out exercises by sports masters and candidates. Figures are not people, but the number of norms carried out. Some 12% of participants that were okay in the previous years. Now the members of the different teams. Well, now the speaker is away from the mic. Apologies, the interpreter can't hear him. That's 10 times that the sportsmaster norm was carried out. Some people repeat it year after year, and that means that the approach wasn't serious enough for determination of the norms. There's no motivation for going in for the shooting sport. Also, one should consider the fact that same norms are used different kinds of sports like pentathlon, etc. I'll explain the reasons very soon. At the bottom, you see our suggestions, the new norms that would be in line with the reality. Please regard them. The existing norms at present is 291 scores. We suggest 288 for the candidate 283. Right now, it's 286 scores. The situation is a bit better with candidates. We've specially analyzed this for the Masters of Sports and the candidates. That's a decisive factor. So there's yet another thing. How do we regard when selecting these norms? The first exercise, the initial exercise, the norm is 25 scores when shooting from Kalashnikov machine gun and Makarov pistol. Also 3 shots from a distance of 25 meters. The distance with the machine gun is 100 meters. That's it for 25 scores. That's excellent result. 21 scores is excellent result. So we use this as a basis. You will find the formula in the end. I'll mention it a bit later. So we determine the average scores for one shot. That's for the third place. Then we added 5 scores to the result of the third kind. And here and now we can impact the results, total and average. That's more suitable, I believe. That's a better system. Shooting, why that? We use the actual arms used in the army, and the athletes who know about shooting know that at big competitions they use special bullets with that provide better results of shooting. There's a pneumatic point, etc. Thus, the precision and the results of shooting are better. What are the obstacles we experience? There are same requirements to the pistol. The pistols used maybe not as good at a distance of 100 meters. If you are shooting, the difference should be not more than 15 centimeters. Then the arms are considered to be good enough while using these bullets. Thus, you depend more on good luck. And again, there are no ideal conditions for storing of the arms. Yes, there are existing requirements, and it's forbidden to bring your own bullets to the competitions. So transportation is related to security issues. Security is provided by the military detachments, and they're using the standard bullets. There are some special features. Our police organizations are using the bullet without a steel center that provides worse results. At the fleet, they use different bullets. There's lead bullets used to avoid rebates at close distances. There's yet another block, speed shooting. That's a new kind of sports, and we conduct contests in this kind of sport for some 10 years. However, there are no norms in it yet. It wasn't introduced. We are trying to do that, and we have a request. If you meet with the authorities, please advise them on that. We're also trying to do certain things in this field. There also exists a block, that's a topic about women. They only have 2 exercises to conduct. We conducted once competition and research of the results of the competitions. Competition has been conducted for some 5 years. We've done the relevant analysis, and we have certain suggestions for improvement. We suggested to introduce the first short exercises necessary for the title of the candidate of sports master, and we think that there may be introduced a speed shooting. Thus, women may get the title of the master of sports as well. Women do participate in CIS competitions, so we believe this could be useful. We suggest to modify see table 7. We suggest that this is introduced into the register of the Russian kinds of sport. The shooting, speed exercises, they are being conducted now, but without the norms. Black circle target may be used by trained athletes. And there's a little peculiarity. They have a threshold of 1,000 scores, but when they compete for the scores, not everything is being considered. Thank you very much. Thank you for the attention. I'd like to thank the previous speakers. They were very informative. Thank you, Valentin. I should mention that we conduct the research work, Sport Forum, and yeah, they are developing new norms of the sports titles. Here are some people like Mr. Pankov that are dealing with the issue. We socialize with them on the topic. Your new suggestions are very welcome. We should bring these suggestions to the sports ministry. Yes, you have good research that you've been conducted for some 10 years, very well tested results. So these research results should be used in practice. Also, this common work should be conducted. There should be no age limits as well. Next presentation is Mr. Tikhanchuk, Arkady Tikhanchuk, the candidate of pedagogical science, deputy head of chair. So tell us on professional features of rugby. My presentation shall be the last, so I'll do my best to be brief. 7 minutes. I'm the representative of the chair of the game kinds of sport, and rugby is a kind of an outsider. That's due to the fact that the Rugby Federation of Russia created a fund for development of rugby in the army. On the slide, you see the results obtained in quite a brief period of time. They're quite successful, and they cooperate well with the armed forces. Well, on the next slide, you can see the geography. That's 40 regions where rugby is played either in the army educational establishments or in the army detachments. Rugby 7 and rugby 15 with thus 7 or 15 players. Let me briefly mention Scientific research of our chair, our assistant professor, is studying this issue. That's a simple slide. Rugby is a kind of sport with, say, it's a kind of a super contact kind of sport. But before we provide the main results of our research, let me briefly familiarize you with the kind of movements that the players conduct. You can see what kind of movements and tricks they do to be successful in their game. Different kinds of false movements are being used to be able to win. There are also the actions that are often used. So it's a very contact and somewhat traumatic kind of sports. There exists an opinion that rugby is a highly traumatic kind of sport. You get handicapped if you play rugby, they believe. That's not so. Rugby is number 5 regarding the level of traumas in comparison with the other kinds of sport. We've analyzed this and we involved some medical personnel in this research to be able to get the relevant facts. So let me mention the following and drive your attention to the fact that our research was done considering the the opinion of the world-known scientists like Anukhin, Mirovin, Dubrovin, Shchurov. They have that theory of the transfer of preparedness. We checked the National Guard's properties and compared them with the elements of a rugby game. Let's switch to illustrations. Here you see two similar movements. In rugby is the so-called cancer, when the athlete is protecting the fallen player. See, the judge in the middle is rolling the ball into the group of players, and they fight with shoulders to be able to give the ball to their team. We came to a conclusion that this is similar to the combat activities. It's when two groups of soldiers of different armies are fighting. When the National Guards are fighting. One is the leader, and there's a group supporting him. So the group is approaching. To get out to be able to arrest the most active insurgents. Next, we compared rugby to the norms existing in the army. For that, we use actions and movements in the rugby field. It's very similar to that in the battlefield, especially if one is surrounded with hostile people. That theory that we are using, and I've mentioned the surnames of the scientists who were studying the topic. We also did the correlation with certain motions and norms of drilling results. It may be a disputable theory, however, the correlation in the mathematical mode that we've used proved that the results are true. And yes, if you play rugby, you are prepared better to do the combat activities. That's it with my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Questions are welcome. Professor Alexey Shchurov. Professor is not using the mic. Unfortunately, the question cannot be translated. Please tell us, on slide 6, you mentioned the percentage info on the data. Which principle did you use? Did you consider only the number of traumas or the level of their severity as well? We've analyzed, well, if the player couldn't participate in the game for a certain period of time, yes, I wouldn't say that the severity of trauma was being considered. But if is away from playing for 3 days or more, it's considered to be a serious trauma, though the actually level of severity was not being assessed. Yes, traumas are numerous, but they may be lighter or severe. That's you considered stopping. I was just curious to learn about that. You could have mentioned it. Maybe I missed it. May I put the question this way? Which body did initiate the cultivation of rugby in the army? And in the Military Institute of Physical Culture, will it be taught? What's the situation? I mean, training, etc. Thank you for the question, Alexey. Foundation of Rugby Federation of the Fund for the Development of Rugby in the Armed Forces. They do a lot for the development of rugby. In the Armed Forces, they conduct different contests, and the Rugby Federation of Rugby of Russia is financing the championships. So that's the most fast developing kind of sports in the armed forces. And thanks for prompting. In August, there'll be a championship of the CIS under the aegide of the International Council on this kind of sport. What about training in the Military Institute? Is it planned? Yes, it's already been taught for 2 years. Theory, methodology, 8 hours, 4 classes. Thank you. Any more questions? If not, thank you very much, Arkady. Well, distinguished colleagues, the program of the session is complete. I'd like to thank the speakers for most informative presentations. I'd like to thank the audience as well. And in the beginning, everyone received the draft of the resolution. Any remarks? Any editing? If yes, please provide this to the Presidium, because the editing collegium shall generalize that, and tomorrow at the final meeting, will be included in the resolution of final resolution of our Congress. On behalf of the organizational committee of the Congress, I'd like to thank you once again. Sorry, I couldn't make it to every presentation, but the ones I've heard, I was very pleased with. Very interesting information indeed. And the main point, this kind of socialization does initiate new ideas in our fields. That's the value of live socialization at the congresses. Thank you. I join the opinion of one of the main organizers of both the session and the Congress in general. And I'd like just to express my gratitude for your organization work, and thanks for inviting the experts from the Military Institute of Physical Culture. I mean, Mr. Ashkinazi, personally. Let's give a hand of applause. Let me also thank everybody for participating, for making it to our session. Thanks for the excellent presentations. Yeah, really, it's kind of dedicated to the armed forces. But civilians who provided their presentations have also provided very interesting and useful suggestions that may be used in the army. We keep working on improvement. Let me remember once again, Sport 4, the head of the department for the development of suggestions and development of new kinds of sports, is here with us. I believe we had a very good exchange of opinions. Some innovative fields were mentioned, and we'll keep moving forward. Wish you luck in your future work. Separate thanks to Mr. Sergey Ashkinazi. He is also our employee of our Scientific Research Center. Thanks for gathering us here, and thanks for including our presentations in this session. Thank you very much, Sergey. Thanks to all. So let's call it a session. Coffee break is prepared, and welcome for lunch. At 4 o'clock, master class is beginning. Everyone is welcome. It's going to be interesting. I won't tell you everything about it, but it's going to be interesting.